What's up, squad? It's the Anxious Squid here, and you're here at my YouTube channel, Anxious Squid Productions. This video is another one for my history playlist, but I have a lot of other playlists and diversified content as well. So if this is the first time you've come across me, have a poke around the channel. After you're done with this video, of course, decide if you like me based on a few of the playlists, and then hit subscribe if it isn't too much to ask. I'm trying to get to 5,000 subscribers by the end of 2020 this year, and I need your help to get there. So yeah. Earlier this week, I put my regular Australian history script writing on hold because I saw some pictures and articles from where I used to live in the Wallandilly region, and they piqued my interest. I figured my subscribers would probably find this story a bit more interesting than the settler colonial history I had planned for another video. You'll get that anyway next week, but hang around because I think this one's probably a little bit better. In the interest of transparency, this script was written by me, but I knocked it up pretty quickly by combining and then tweaking two popular news articles on the topic that were easily accessible via Google. The two articles were written by Olivia Smith-Lathoris for 9 News and Rachel Hayter for the Sydney Morning Herald, respectively. I've included links to both of those articles in the description of this video. Neither is blocked by a paywall, and I recommend you check them out if you're interested after I'm finished here. Stick around though, as I said. I hope you enjoy my content, and as always, I want you to let me know what you thought in the comments sections either way, good or bad. Let's get into it now though. This is the story of Burragorang Valley, now Burragorang Lakes, a town that was eternally damned in the late 1950s. See what I did there? It's been 62 years since the township of Burragorang Valley was cleared, evacuated, and then flooded to create storage for Sydney's water supply. If you've heard of Warragamba Dam, or even gone there for a school excursion, as I did when I was a kid, it's kind of eerie to realise that people used to live under there. Houses, farms, churches, and vast areas of bushland were bulldozed, cemeteries were dug up and relocated, a tight-knit community was uprooted, and they were displaced to guarantee a secure water supply for the people of Sydney. Logistically logical, yet no less tragic for the families who had generations of history there. Warragamba Dam is now one of the largest domestic water supply dams in the whole world, supplying water to nearly 6 million people in Sydney and the surrounding areas. Its main storage lake, where kids of Burragorang Valley used to play happily by the riverside, covers 75 square kilometres, or 46 square miles, and holds 4 times more water than all of Sydney Harbour. For my American and Canadian viewers, that's around half the size of Lake Ontario and a third the size of Lake Erie in a man-made dam. It was truly a mammoth effort to create, and it has done exactly what it was intended to do, which is just as rare a thing for a government project in Australia as it is here in America, don't worry. It doesn't change the fact, though, that beneath the waters of Lake Burragorang lies a valley that hundreds of people once called home. Nor does it soothe the pain of those people who were forced to leave. The Burragorang Valley was renowned for its pristine river and majestic mountains. The rolling hills, untouched bushland, and vast cliffs with expansive lookouts would make anyone feel connected to nature, so it should come as no surprise that it was a popular destination for tourists in the early 20th century as well. People would travel for miles and miles to stay in several guest houses that were dotted along the river, which we are lucky enough to have some photographs of, and I'll put them up along here on the screen somewhere as I speak, right? You've probably already seen them. People rode horses, ate rabbits, swam in the river, and worked the land for generations, pretty much since British settlement, or within 15 to 20 years of it at the very least. The first white man to see a lyrebird, a black cockatoo, and a wombat did so in the surrounding areas of Burragorang Valley, and it's more than likely that they made camp within that valley on the expeditions where they saw them. But the idyllic lifestyle was unfortunately not destined for permanence. A national population boom after World War I, followed by Australia's worst drought in recorded history, placed immense pressure on Sydney's water supply and, in turn, the state government. The Burragorang Valley was identified as the ideal place for a dam and a man-made flood to fill it. The authorities moved in, and the township of Burragorang Valley was demolished to make way for the building of what is now known as Warragamba Dam. The government acquired every property, and they supposedly bulldozed every building. 64 square kilometres, or 39 square miles of wild bushland was also cleared, and the town's cemeteries were dug up and relocated. Families who had lived in the area for generations were forced to move, and they were forced to watch their history get drowned for the greater good of Sydney's population. The dam wall was built in 1958, and the water came much quicker than expected, so the dam was opened in 1960. Fast forward 60 odd years from then to now, in 2020, in case you're watching this in the future, and an ongoing drought which the country hasn't seen the likes of since the one that caused the dam to be built over 60 years ago, has resulted in the re-emergence of some haunting artefacts poking up from above the waterline. Given they've been there since before the dam existed, claims that they're suddenly now affecting the purity of the water supply are silly at best, in my opinion, though it is an unprofessional one. Remnants of the old town and villages, including wells, buildings, railway lines, and more, have poked above the water in catchments and lakes around the Wallandilly and the lower Blue Mountains areas. Being submerged underwater has resulted in the partial preservation of many of the artefacts, albeit with a bit of rust attached, which can only be seen during times of significant drought, like they're experiencing at the moment in the local areas. Warragamba Dam is at 43% capacity at the time of uploading this, and with Sydney's population on an ever-increasing upward slope, adding to the weather-related woes, it doesn't really look like it'll stop dropping in percentages anytime soon either. One of the cooler artifacts, or stranger I guess, depending on your perspective, was an old US Army tank, pictured here, that still sits in the watery grave that it was in Lake Burragorang to this day. The medium tank M3 Grant is thought to be one of 6,258 made during the war. Caitlin Nertz, heritage specialist at Water New South Wales, said, "We think at the end of World War II there was a lot of selling off of excess army machinery, and some of the farmers did take those to use on their properties." Through conversations with locals who used to inhabit the valley, Ms. Lennertz said the tank could have been used at one of the guest houses where tourists from Sydney would come and stay on a holiday as somewhat of an attraction, but that it was far more likely that the machinery was used for things like clearing logs, trees, or general things one might think a tractor would do these days. The famous Wallandilly Bridge from the Warragamba catchment, previously submerged by water, can now also be seen, and I'll throw some before and after photos up with that as well because I find them so interesting. Check out how Wallandilly spelt in the older one. Each artefact tells a different story, and while some have become a novelty to those who live in the surrounding areas, others bring old tragedies to the surface. Imagine for a second being one of the kids whose family had lived in the valley for generations, now looking back on a rusted out old ghost town poking its head out into your later years. If you were 15 when the valley was flooded, you'd only be 77 years old right now. The town your grandparents lived and died in, poking its head back up while you're their age, almost specifically to remind you of that time you had, and to leave you and the disconnect in your family's history feeling strong. The communities and townships that were forced out of the area in the late 50s still bear the weight of their homes, businesses, and communities being destroyed, making the re-emergence of what is left a painful reminder of what once existed. There are parts of that community that still meet together every year to collectively mourn the loss of their community. I can't imagine these objects inspire much happiness or curiosity for them. Not only are the artifacts a reminder of the tragedies of the past, they also serve as a confronting indicator of the extent of the drought, with no sign of significant rain on the horizon for the people of Sydney and the surrounding areas anytime soon. Combine that with the ash and smoke that has fallen into the catchment area due to mismanagement of resources and the resulting nearby bushfires this fire season, and the debate about water quality will rear its ugly head again pretty soon. You can bet your bottom dollar on that. There is no evidence at all to show that the artifacts have an impact on water quality. There is significant evidence to suggest the ash from the local bushfires does though. What action the New South Wales state government takes, or Australian federal government, is yet to be seen. For what it's worth, the local council areas, the equivalent to counties for my American viewers, have been campaigning for increased attention to the water levels and the water quality since the capacity dropped below 75% or thereabouts. Their campaigns have resoundingly fallen on deaf ears, just quietly, with both federal and state parliamentarians from the area being blow-ins who didn't grow up there, and who both only bought houses in the area so that they could be elected in the first place. I personally doubt that there will be any action taken until it's well and truly too late, if there is ever any action taken at all. I'll concede maybe that's a tad pessimistic, but I can't imagine a bloke from Sans Souci and a bloke from a few hours south of Canberra even care about the electorate that they've been parachuted into. One of the many pitfalls of being a safe Liberal seat, I guess. But I'll cut my whinging off there, lest I be seen to be making this video too political. Let me know if you enjoyed this video in the comments section, as always. Give me a share on Facebook if you could. Subscribe if this was the first time you've come across me. And consider joining these guys in the Squid Squad over on Patreon if you appreciate my content enough to pay for it. No pressure, just if you're in a position to do so. Subscribing and watching is good enough if you aren't. And if you're a hater and you're just watching and you aren't subscribed, that helps too. I've got some more reaction videos coming tonight, and I'll be jumping back into the Rough History of Australia series I've got going on next week as well, for those playing along at home in that regard. I'll probably be going live at some point tonight or tomorrow as well, so hit that bell next to the subscribe button if you want to be notified whenever I do anything. That'll do for this video though, guys, as always. Let me know if there's something you want me to look into, and I most likely will. I'm just sitting here waiting to read your comments. I'll see you when I look at you. You'll see me when you look at me. Thanks for watching.